Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his massive ship and watched the blue planet turn slowly below him. Earth looked so peaceful from space. White clouds moved across green and brown land. The oceans sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. "Are you sure these humans are safe to approach?" asked his second officer, a tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin. Veltar clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Look at the data, Crix. We have watched them for 50 Earth years. They spend their time making music and art. They feed small animals in parks. They cry when they see violence in their entertainment programs." The bridge screens showed recordings from Earth's television signals, humans holding hands and singing together, humans rescuing cats from trees, humans planting flowers in gardens, children playing games without weapons. They are clearly a herbivorous species, Veltar continued. Notice how they gather in groups to share food, how they care for their young in large communities. This is classic prey behavior. Crick studied the reports from their science teams. The biological scans confirm it, Commander. Their teeth are designed for eating plants and soft foods. Their bodies are weak. No natural weapons like claws or poison glands. They cannot even see well in the dark. Exactly, Veltar said. He turned to address his crew. This will be the easiest harvest in hegemony history. 12 billion soft, gentle creatures who will be grateful for our protection. They will work happily in our mines once we explain how we are saving them from their primitive world. The other officers on the bridge made sounds of agreement. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered 47 worlds in the past 1,000 years. They had learned to identify the signs of a peaceful species. Earth showed all of them. "Begin the descent," Veltar ordered. "Use minimum shields." These creatures could not harm our ships even if they wanted to. Across Earth's surface, 12 enormous alien ships appeared in the sky above major cities. Each ship was 3 miles long and gleamed like silver in the sunlight. They moved without sound, casting shadows over buildings and streets below. In New York City, millions of people stopped what they were doing and looked up. Some pointed at the ships. Others took pictures with their phones. Many just stood with their mouths open. Sarah Chun was in her office at the United Nations building when her assistant ran in without knocking. "Ambassador Chun, you need to see this," the young man said, pointing at the television. Every news channel showed the same thing. Alien ships hovering over every major city on Earth. The ships were so large they blocked out the sun in some areas. Sarah Chun had been preparing for this moment her entire career. She was Earth's top diplomat, trained in 17 languages and expert in cultural communication. But as she watched the alien ships on television, she felt her heart beating very fast. "Get me the president," she said calmly, "and contact the other world leaders. Tell them we are implementing Contact Protocol Alpha." Within hours, a voice spoke from the alien ships in broken English, French, Chinese, and other major languages. The voice was high and musical, like singing. "Greetings, gentle creatures of Earth. We are the Zephyrian hegemony. We come to save you from your primitive existence. You will be relocated to serve the greater good of the galaxy. Do not resist. Resistance will only cause unnecessary suffering." Large doors opened on the bottom of each ship. Smaller craft emerged and flew toward the ground. They landed in parks and open areas near city centers. The alien beings that stepped out were beautiful, in a strange way. They were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow. Their faces were angular, with large eyes that changed color. They wore flowing robes and moved with graceful steps, but they also carried weapons, long staffs that hummed with energy. And they brought devices that looked like metal collars. Sarah Chun met the aliens in Central Park with a team of diplomats from many countries. She wore her best blue suit and had practiced her most diplomatic smile. The other diplomats stood behind her, all looking calm and professional. The lead alien approached her. It was even taller than the others, with markings on its robe that suggested high rank. "I am Commander Veltar," it said in musical English. "You are the leaders of this settlement?" "I am Ambassador Sarah Chun," speaking for the United Nations and the people of Earth," she replied. "We welcome you in peace and hope we can find a way to coexist that benefits both our species." Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is no coexistence, gentle creature. You will be relocated to work facilities where you will serve the hegemony. This is not a negotiation." Sarah kept her diplomatic smile even as alien soldiers began herding nearby civilians toward transport vehicles. She watched families being separated. She saw children crying as they were loaded into alien ships. "Surely we can discuss this," she said. "Humans have much to offer as partners rather than slaves." "Slaves?" Veltar seemed confused. "We do not enslave, we relocate for the greater good. You will be fed and housed and given work suited to your gentle nature. You will be much happier serving a higher purpose." More alien soldiers arrived. They began placing the metal collars around people's necks. Anyone who resisted was hit with energy weapons that made them fall unconscious. Sarah Chun was forced to watch as her fellow diplomats were collared and led away. Some tried to run, others pleaded for mercy. All were treated like animals being rounded up for market. When the aliens came for her, Sarah did not resist. She let them place the cold metal collar around her neck. She walked calmly when they pushed her toward the transport ship, but as she was led up the ramp into the alien vessel, she spoke very quietly into the small device hidden in her jacket. "This is Ambassador Chun. Contact Protocol Alpha has failed. All diplomatic solutions are exhausted." She paused as an alien guard shoved her forward. "I am authorizing Protocol Omega. Repeat, Protocol Omega is now active." The guard did not understand her words. None of the aliens did. They had been watching human communications for 50 years, but they had only listened to the peaceful broadcasts. They had never bothered to learn about human military codes in hidden facilities around the world. Other humans received Sarah Chun's message. Men and women in underground bunkers who had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. People who had spent decades preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail. They had watched the peaceful television shows too. But they also knew the shows that never made it to broadcast. The movies that were too violent to send into space. The history books full of wars and weapons and human beings doing terrible things to survive. As Sarah Chun disappeared into the alien ship, she smiled for the first time that day. It was not a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. The aliens thought they had found gentle prey. They were about to learn that humans were something much more dangerous. They were about to discover that the most peaceful creatures, when finally pushed too far, become the most terrible enemies of all. In the depths of Earth's oceans, in hidden mountain bases, in facilities disguised as research centers, humanity's true nature began to wake up. The gentle creatures who fed birds and planted flowers were about to show the galaxy what they really were, and the sky would burn with their wrath. 3 hours after Ambassador Chun's message, Colonel Marcus Rodriguez stood in a room that did not exist on any official map. The room was carved deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, behind walls of steel and concrete that could survive a nuclear war. "Omega, protocol is active," he said to the 30 officers gathered around him. "All pretense is over. Show them what we are." The officers were from different countries, but they all wore the same expression. They had been waiting for this day their entire lives. For 50 years, Earth's governments had prepared for hostile first contact while broadcasting only peaceful signals to space. "Sir, all hidden facilities are responding," reported Major Kim, a small woman with sharp eyes. "Project Prometheus is online. The orbital platforms are charging their weapons." Rodriguez nodded. Above them, satellites that the world thought were for weather monitoring and communications began to unfold. Solar panels extended to reveal particle beam projectors. Communication arrays rotated to become targeting systems. The aliens had been watching Earth's space program for decades. They had seen humans launch peaceful scientific missions. They had not seen the military payloads hidden inside every single launch. "Contact the submarine fleet," Rodriguez ordered. "Tell them to surface and prepare for orbital fire support." And The Pacific Ocean, what looked like a small research vessel, suddenly split open like a flower. Weapons platforms rose from inside the fake hull. The research ship had been hiding a mobile missile battery with enough firepower to level a city. Similar revelations occurred across the globe. Wind farms revealed themselves to be massive rail gun installations. The International Space Station deployed hidden weapon pods. Even the friendly radio telescopes that had been searching for alien life turned out to be powerful communication jammers. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was in her laboratory when the call came. To the world, she was a botanist studying plant diseases. Her greenhouse was full of beautiful flowers and healthy vegetables. She had published papers on sustainable farming and gave lectures about feeding the world's hungry, but when her secure phone rang, she set down her watering can and walked to a wall that looked like solid concrete. She pressed her hand against it, and it opened to reveal another laboratory entirely. This room contained no flowers. The glass containers held viruses and bacteria specifically designed to target non-human biology. The computers were running models of alien physiology based on intercepted communications and energy signatures. "How long until the biological weapons are ready?" asked the voice on the phone. 20 minutes, Yuki replied, pulling on a hazmat suit. "The atmospheric dispersal system is already in place. Every major city has been prepared for years." She had spent her career studying how to make plants grow better, but she had spent her secret career studying how to make aliens die faster. Above the cities, the alien ships continued their harvest. Commander Veltar watched his soldiers load humans into transport pods with satisfaction. The creatures were so docile. Even when separated from their young, they only made sad sounds and leaked water from their eyes. "Commander," his communications officer called, "we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." Veltar barely looked up from his reports. Probably their primitive power systems overloading from fear. "These creatures are not technologically advanced." That was when the first orbital platform fired. The beam of concentrated particles struck Veltar's ship like the hand of an angry god. The vessel's shields, designed to deflect asteroid impacts and solar radiation, held for exactly 3 seconds. Before failing completely, the ship lurched as massive sections of its hull simply ceased to exist. Veltar was thrown across his bridge as emergency alarms filled the air. "Report!" he screamed at his crew. "Unknown weapon type," his tactical officer replied. "Energy levels far beyond what these creatures should possess." From the surface of Earth, more weapons fired. Railguns that had been disguised as radio towers launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile batteries that had been hidden in fake shopping centers sent swarms of guided warheads toward the alien fleet, but the most shocking revelation came from orbit itself. The humans' own space stations and satellites were firing on the alien ships. Weapons that should not have existed on such a primitive world were tearing through hegemony vessels like they were made of paper. "How is this possible?" Veltar demanded. "Our intelligence said they were a peaceful species." His answer came in the form of human fighter craft that erupted from what he had thought were grain silos. The small ships moved with impossible agility, dodging return fire and striking weak points on the alien vessels with surgical precision. Colonel Rodriguez watched the battle from his command center and smiled grimly. Every human child who had ever played a video game was now piloting a real fighter craft. Every engineer who had ever built a race car was now maintaining weapons of war. Every person who had ever competed in sports was now part of a military unit. The aliens had watched humans compete in the Olympics and seen peaceful athletic events. They had not understood that they were watching a species that turned everything into training for war. In New York, the alien transport ship carrying Ambassador Chun suddenly shuddered as its engines failed. Emergency lighting cast red shadows through the holding area where hundreds of humans waited in their restraint collars. Chun looked up as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated. She had felt this sensation before during military training exercises. The ship was under attack. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said calmly to her fellow prisoners, "it appears our rescue has arrived." The humans around her began to smile. They were teachers and accountants and shop clerks, but they were also something else. They were members of a species that had never truly been conquered by anyone or anything. The collars around their necks were designed to control peaceful herbivores. They were not designed to hold back creatures whose ancestors had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and 10,000 years of warfare. Chun found the weak point in her collar by touch. Alone. Every human diplomat was trained in basic escape techniques, though the aliens had never thought to check for such skills in a peaceful species. "When I give the signal," she whispered, "everyone removes our collars and takes control of this ship. Remember your training?" The other humans nodded. They were about to show their captors the difference between being peaceful by choice and being harmless by nature. Above them, the battle for Earth's sky continued. Alien ships burned in the atmosphere as they fell toward the planet's surface. But for every alien vessel destroyed, 2 more appeared from hyperspace. The hegemony was beginning to understand that they had not found a planet full of gentle prey. They had stumbled into the nest of something far more dangerous. On his damaged flagship, Commander Veltar received reports that made his blood run cold. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender requests from our ground forces in 17 cities. The humans have surrounded our landing parties with weapons." "We cannot identify. Impossible," Veltar said. "Our intelligence was perfect. We monitored their broadcasts for 50 years, yes, sir? But it appears they have been broadcasting false information. The real human society was hidden beneath the surface communications we intercepted." Veltar looked at the tactical display, showing his fleet being systematically destroyed by a species that should not have been able to build weapons at all. "Send a message to Hegemony Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have encountered a previously unknown type of species. Classification: apex predator masquerading as prey. Request immediate reinforcement of the entire 7th Fleet." But even as he sent the message, Veltar wondered if it would be enough. The gentle creatures who had seemed so harmless were revealing themselves to be something that the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was awake. And they were very, very angry. Captain Elena Vasquez had never expected to command an alien spaceship, but war has a way of changing people's career plans. She stood on the bridge of the captured hegemony vessel, watching her crew of former civilians work at control stations. "Designed for creatures with 4 arms. Status report," she called out. "We have full control of navigation and weapons," replied Tommy Chun, a 19-year-old who had been studying computer science before the invasion. "The alien security systems are like video games from 20 years ago, really easy to hack." Elena nodded. Humans had spent decades playing games that simulated space combat and alien technology. What the game designers had imagined as fiction turned out to be surprisingly close to reality. "Maria, what about the engineering section?" Maria Santos looked up from her jury-rigged control panel. Before the war, she had fixed cars in her father's garage. Now she was keeping an alien starship running with spare parts from Earth and creative solutions that made the ship's original designers would never have imagined. "The engines are running at 120% of their design capacity," Maria reported with a grin. "I bypassed their safety systems. These aliens are way too careful with their equipment." Elena smiled. The hegemony built their ships to last for centuries and operated them with careful precision. Humans built their ships to be pushed to the breaking point and fixed with whatever materials were available. "Target acquired," announced David Kim from the weapons station. The Master Sergeant had transferred from the Army to become Elena's tactical officer. 3 hegemony cruisers approaching Earth's moon. "They have no idea we're here." "Fire at will," Elena ordered. The captured alien ship struck from behind, using its own kind's weapons against them. The attacking cruisers were destroyed before they could send a warning to their fleet. This scene was being repeated across the solar system. Human crews had captured dozens of alien vessels and were using them to attack their former owners. The hegemony's advanced technology was being turned against them by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. On Earth's surface, the transformation was even more dramatic. The gentle farmers who had grown food for their communities were now using their equipment to build weapons. Tractors became mobile missile platforms. Irrigation systems became fuel lines for massive flamethrowers. In the city of Detroit, former automobile workers had converted their factories to produce military vehicles using alien technology. They worked 18-hour shifts fueled by coffee and the knowledge that their families were depending on them. "We need more armor plating," called out Frank Morrison, a welder who had been unemployed for 3 years before the invasion. "The new tanks are too light for the alien energy weapons." "Use the hull plates from the crashed ships," his supervisor replied. "Strip everything useful and weld it onto our vehicles. If it's good enough for space travel, it's good enough for tank armor." The humans were doing something the hegemony had never encountered before. They were adapting alien technology in real time during active combat. Every captured device was immediately studied, copied, and improved upon. Dr. James Wright had been a literature professor before the war. He specialized in ancient human conflicts and military history. Now he found himself in charge of developing new combat strategies against an enemy with superior technology. "The key is psychological warfare," he explained to a group of military officers. "The aliens expect us to fight like they do. Organized, predictable, following rules of engagement. We need to fight like humans." "What does that mean?" asked General Peterson. Wright pulled up historical examples on his presentation screen. "Guerrilla warfare, terrorism, psychological manipulation. We make them afraid to leave their ships. We make them question every decision. We turn their own assumptions against them." The strategy was already working across the globe. Human fighters would attack alien positions and then disappear into cities and forests. They would strike supply lines and then vanish. They would broadcast false information and create fake targets. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Every human civilian might be a spy or a saboteur. Every building might contain weapons. Every communication might be a trap. Commander Veltar had survived the destruction of his flagship and now commanded the remnants of his fleet from a smaller vessel. His reports to Hegemony Command grew more desperate with each passing day. "They are not fighting like any species we have encountered," he transmitted. "They use their own children as soldiers. They turn civilian infrastructure into military assets. They show no mercy to prisoners and no respect for the rules of war." The response from command was not encouraging. "Additional reinforcements are being prepared. Hold your position and contain the humans until support arrives." But containing humanity was proving to be impossible. Every day brought new revelations about human capabilities. Their internet communication system allowed them to coordinate attacks across the globe instantly. Their entertainment industry had prepared them for every possible combat scenario. Their competitive sports had trained them to work as teams under pressure. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Veltar watched recordings of human soldiers laughing as they destroyed hegemony equipment. He saw human civilians celebrating when alien ships crashed. These creatures were not fighting out of desperation. They were fighting because they were good at it. On the dark side of Earth's moon, humanity's greatest secret was finally revealed. The lunar base that had been abandoned after the Apollo missions was actually a thriving military installation. For 50 years, humans had been building weapons and defenses in the one place the aliens had not thought to look carefully. General Patricia Hayes commanded Luna Base from a facility that was larger than most cities on Earth. The base contained manufacturing facilities, weapon laboratories, and most importantly, the ships that humanity had been building in secret for decades. "Launch the first squadron," she ordered. From hidden bays on the moon's surface, ships emerged that looked nothing like the peaceful exploration vessels that Earth had been broadcasting to the galaxy. These were warships, designed specifically for combat against advanced alien civilizations. The lunar fleet struck the hegemony reinforcements before they could reach Earth. Ships that the aliens thought were centuries beyond human technology tore through their formations like sharks attacking fish back on Earth. Ambassador Chun had successfully led the prisoner uprising on the alien transport ship. The vessel was now under human control and being used to rescue civilians from other captured ships. "How many more transports are still under alien control?" she asked her communications officer. 17 ships still carrying human prisoners," came the reply. "But our people are organizing uprisings on 12 of them." "The aliens never expected their prisoners to fight back," Chun smiled. The hegemony had made the classic mistake of assuming that a peaceful species would remain peaceful, even under attack. They had not understood that humans chose peace when possible but embraced war when necessary. "Send a message to all hegemony vessels," she ordered. "Tell them that any ship carrying human prisoners has exactly 1 hour to release them unharmed. After that, we will consider those ships to be enemy combatants and destroy them regardless of who is on board." It was a bluff, but the aliens did not know that. The message was broadcast in perfect hegemony military code, which the humans had. Learned by studying captured equipment, more alien ships began releasing their human cargo rather than risk destruction. The freed humans were immediately transported to military facilities where they were armed and trained for combat. As news of Earth's resistance spread through hegemony communication networks, something unexpected began to happen. Other species that had been conquered by the hegemony started to pay attention. For centuries, these enslaved civilizations had accepted their fate because resistance seemed impossible. The hegemony was too powerful, too advanced, too organized to defeat, but now they were watching a primitive species not just resist the hegemony, but actually win battles against them. If humans could fight back successfully, maybe others could too. Rebellion began to spread across the galaxy as the news reached other conquered worlds. The hegemony found itself fighting not just humanity, but uprisings on dozens of planets. Commander Veltar received these reports with growing horror. What had started as a simple harvest operation had become a galaxy-wide war. And it was all because his people had underestimated the gentle creatures of Earth. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting massive energy buildup from the human lunar base. They appear to be charging some kind of super weapon." Veltar looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. The humans were not content to simply defend their world. They were preparing to take the fight to the hegemony itself. The gentle prey had become apex predators, and now they wanted revenge. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the human flagship, righteous fury, and watched the stars shift as her fleet emerged from hyperspace. 6 months ago, she had been a diplomat trying to negotiate peace with alien invaders. Now she commanded the largest human military force ever assembled. "Target confirmed," reported her tactical officer. "Kepler 442 system. 3 inhabited worlds under hegemony control. Population, 4 billion enslaved beings across multiple species." Sarah nodded. The Kepler system had been conquered by the hegemony 200 years ago. Its people had been classified as pacified and used for manual labor in orbital mining. "Stations. Send the standard message," Sarah ordered. Lieutenant Johnson activated the communication array and broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention all beings in the Kepler system. This is Admiral Chun of the Terran Federation. We are here to offer you freedom from hegemony rule. You have 1 hour to decide. Stand with us against your oppressors or face the consequences of supporting them." The message was broadcast in 47 different languages. Human linguists had spent months learning to communicate with every species they could contact. On the bridge, Dr. James Wright monitored the Psychological Warfare Division. His literature background had made him an expert in understanding how different cultures thought and felt. "Admiral," he reported, "we are receiving positive responses from the slave populations on all 3 worlds. However, the hegemony garrison commanders are preparing to fight." "Their choice," Sarah replied coldly. "Begin the liberation." The human Fleet split into 3 attack groups. Each group moved toward one of the inhabited worlds with deadly precision. But this was not the same kind of warfare the galaxy had known for. Millennia. Where other species fought with honor and followed rules of engagement, humans fought to win by any means necessary. They used captured hegemony technology against itself. They employed tactics that were considered dishonorable by galactic standards. They showed no mercy to those who opposed them. Captain Rodriguez commanded the assault on Kepler 442b from his converted alien cruiser. His crew was a mix of former soldiers and civilians who had learned warfare during Earth's liberation. "Sir, the hegemony fleet is moving to intercept us," reported his helmsman. "Let them come," Rodriguez replied. "Activate the psychological warfare protocols." The human ships began broadcasting on all frequencies. But instead of military communications, they transmitted recordings from Earth, music that stirred emotions, images of families being reunited after the liberation, stories of hope and freedom. To the enslaved populations on the planets below. These broadcasts were like a light in the darkness. To the hegemony forces, they were confusing and demoralizing. "Why are they playing music during a battle?" asked Commander Zek, the hegemony officer defending Kepler 442b, his tactical officer. Had no answer. The humans were not behaving like any military force the hegemony had ever faced. The human ships attacked with weapons that violated several galactic treaties. They used biological agents that targeted specific alien physiologies. They employed cyber warfare that turned the hegemony's own systems against them. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to take personal satisfaction in destroying their enemies. Human soldiers could be heard laughing and cheering over communication channels as they defeated hegemony forces on Kepler 442c. The local population had lived under hegemony rule for so long that they had forgotten what freedom looked like. The Vrix people were tall, blue-skinned humanoids who had once been artists and philosophers before their conquest. When the human ships arrived in orbit, many Vrix were afraid. They had been told that aliens from outside the hegemony were savage and dangerous, but the humans who landed on their world were different from what they expected. Captain Maria Santos led her platoon through the capital city, but instead of conquering, they were destroying hegemony control stations and freeing prisoners. "You are safe now," Maria told the Vrix elders in their own language. "The hegemony cannot hurt you anymore." Elder Vex, who had lived through the original conquest, looked at these strange alien creatures with wonder. "Why do you help us?" "What do you want from our world?" Maria smiled. "We want you to be free, that is all." It was a concept that the galaxy had forgotten. Species conquered other species for resources, territory, or strategic advantage. No one fought wars simply to free other people, but humans were different. They had learned through their own history that freedom was worth fighting for. Even when the fight seemed impossible, the liberation of the Kepler system took exactly 18 hours. The hegemony forces were not just defeated, they were utterly destroyed. Ships that had ruled these worlds for 2 centuries were turned into floating debris, but the humans did not stop there. They helped the freed populations establish their own governments. They shared technology and knowledge. They offered membership in the growing Terran Federation, word of the Kepler. Liberation spread through the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. Enslaved species on hundreds of worlds began to hope for the first time in generations. The Hegemony Council met in an emergency session on their capital world of Zephyr Prime. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a crystal table and tried to understand how their perfect empire was falling apart. "The humans have now liberated 17 star systems," reported Intelligence Director Quill. "Their fleet grows stronger with each victory. Free populations are volunteering to fight alongside them. Supreme Chancellor Vorth, a being so old that his species had forgotten its original homeworld, spoke with a voice like grinding stone. How many of our worlds are in open rebellion?" 143 systems have declared independence, Quill replied reluctantly. Another 200 are showing signs of unrest. The Chancellor's four eyes turned different colors as his emotions shifted. A single primitive species has undone 1,000 years of careful expansion. How is this possible? They fight differently than we do, explained War Minister Krex. They do not follow the established rules of warfare. They use psychological manipulation, biological weapons, and cyber attacks. They turn our own technology against us. More importantly, added another council member, they offer something we never considered: hope. The word hung in the air like a toxic gas. Hope was dangerous to an empire built on the acceptance of inevitable defeat. We need to destroy them. Completely, Chancellor Vorth declared. Gather the entire hegemony fleet, every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will make an example of humanity that will be remembered for 10,000 years. But even as he gave the order, the Chancellor knew it might be too late. The humans had done something no other species had managed in galactic history. They had shown that the hegemony could be defeated back in the Kepler system. Admiral Chun received reports of the massive hegemony fleet gathering at Zephyr Prime. Her intelligence officers estimated that the enemy force would outnumber the human fleet by more than 10 to 1. Shall we retreat and consolidate our forces? Asked her chief of staff. Chun looked at the tactical display showing the size of the approaching enemy fleet. Any sane military commander would pull back and prepare defenses, but humans had never been accused of being sane in their approach to warfare. Send a message to all Federation forces, she ordered. Tell them we are moving to attack Zephyr Prime directly. It is time to end this war. Her officers stared at her in shock. She was proposing to attack the most heavily defended world in the galaxy with a force that was vastly outnumbered. Admiral, her tactical officer said carefully, the odds of success are mathematically impossible. Chun smiled with the expression. Her enemies had learned to fear. Good, then they will never see us coming. The human fleet began moving toward the heart of the hegemony. Behind them, the freed worlds of the Kepler system watched their liberators depart and whispered prayers to whatever gods might be listening. The humans were about to attempt the impossible once again. And somehow, the galaxy was beginning to believe they might actually succeed. The space above Zephyr Prime had never seen so many ships in one place. The entire hegemony fleet filled the sky like a metal storm cloud. 12,000 vessels of war arranged in perfect formation around their capital world, Supreme Chancellor. Vorth stood in his command center deep beneath the planet's surface and watched the defensive preparations. Orbital stations bristled with weapons. Energy shields covered the most important cities. Billions of beings waited for the final battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The human fleet has been detected at the edge of the system, reported his tactical commander. Estimated strength, 800 vessels. Vorth allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 15 to 1 odds in his favor. Even these strange, violent humans could not overcome such overwhelming numbers. Send a message to their fleet, he ordered. Offer them the chance to surrender. We will be merciful if they submit now. The reply came back within minutes, transmitted on all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear it. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation. We have come to free the galaxy from your tyranny. Surrender now, and we will allow you to live in exile. Continue to resist and face the consequences. Vorth's advisors made sounds of amazement. The humans were demanding surrender while outnumbered 15 to 1. They are either insane or they know something we do not, observed Intelligence Director Quill. It does not matter, Vorth replied. Begin the attack. Destroy them all. The hegemony fleet moved forward in perfect formation, just as their tactics manuals prescribed. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, moving with precision that had been refined over centuries of conquest. The human fleet did not retreat. Instead, they did something that no military computer in the galaxy had predicted. They split into dozens of small groups and scattered in all directions. What are they doing? Demanded Vorth. Are they running away? On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Admiral Chun watched as her carefully planned strategy unfolded. The hegemony expected humans to fight like every other species in the galaxy, in neat formations, following predictable patterns, using honorable tactics. They were about to learn that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to survive by being unpredictable. All units, execute Protocol Chaos, she ordered, across the battlefield. Human ships began behaving in ways that violated every principle of space warfare. Some dove directly toward the planet's surface, using the gravity well to accelerate to incredible speeds. Others activated captured hegemony technology in combinations that their original designers had never imagined. Captain Rodriguez led his squadron through the middle of the enemy formation, not trying to fight the larger ships, but targeting their communication arrays and sensor systems. Within minutes, the perfect hegemony formation began to collapse as ships lost contact with their commanders. On another front, Dr. Yuki Tanaka deployed her biological weapons from converted civilian transport ships. The toxins spread through the air circulation systems of hegemony vessels, causing mass casualties among crews that had no immunity to diseases from Earth. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source. Tommy Chan, the teenager who had learned to hack alien computers during Earth's liberation, had spent months preparing a cyber weapon that would infect the hegemony's entire computer network. Activating the Prometheus virus, he announced from his workstation aboard a converted freighter. The virus spread through hegemony systems faster than their security programs could respond. Weapons turned on their own ships. Navigation systems sent vessels crashing into each other. Life support systems shut down without warning. Supreme Chancellor Vorth watched in horror as his perfect fleet tore itself apart. Ships that had never been defeated in battle were destroying each other because their computers had been corrupted by human malware. "How is this possible?" he screamed at his advisors. "Our systems are completely secure. The humans appear to have learned our computer languages from captured equipment," Quill replied. "They have turned our own technology against us." On the planet's surface, another kind of battle was taking place. The enslaved populations that the hegemony had kept under control for centuries were rising in rebellion. They had heard Admiral Chon's message and seen the human fleet attack their oppressors. The Vrix people, recently freed from the Kepler system, had traveled to Zephyr Prime to support their human liberators. They fought alongside members of dozens of other species, all united in their hatred of hegemony rule. Elder Vex led a group of rebels through the capital city's government district. They were armed with human weapons and trained in human tactics, but they fought with the fury of beings who had been enslaved for too long. "For freedom," Vex shouted as his people stormed a hegemony control center. For the humans who showed US the way, similar uprisings erupted across the planet. The hegemony's ground forces found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but angry populations from every world they had ever conquered. Above the chaos, Admiral Chun's flagship approached the planet's orbital defense stations. These massive structures had never been threatened in the 1,000-year history of the hegemony. Their weapons could destroy entire fleets, but the humans had learned something important during their brief war with the hegemony. The most powerful weapons were useless if the people operating them did not want to fight. "Attention all beings serving in the orbital defense network," Admiral Chun broadcast. "You are not our enemies. You are slaves forced to fight for your oppressors. Stand down your weapons and join us in freedom." On Defense Station Alpha, Commander Zix looked around at his crew. They were all from conquered worlds, pressed into service by the hegemony. None of them had ever chosen to fight for their masters. "What are your orders, sir?" asked his tactical officer, a young being whose homeworld had been destroyed by the hegemony decades ago. Zix thought about his family, still enslaved on a mining colony in the Outer Rim. He thought about the human message promising freedom for all beings in the galaxy. "Power down all weapons," he ordered. "Open communication channels to the human fleet. Tell them we surrender." One by one, the orbital defense stations ceased their attacks. Their crews, drawn from enslaved populations across the galaxy, chose freedom over continued service to their oppressors, supreme. Chancellor Vorth watched his empire collapse around him in the space of a few hours. His perfect fleet was destroyed, or scattered. His capital world was in rebellion. His most trusted defenders had abandoned him. There is still the final option, he told his remaining advisors. Activate the planetary destruction system. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will deny it to the humans. But even this desperate plan failed. Tommy Chain's virus had infected every computer system on Zephyr Prime. When Vorth tried to activate the planet-killing weapon, nothing happened. "Sir," reported his tactical officer with a voice full of defeat, "the human admiral is requesting your personal surrender. She says she will guarantee your safety if you submit now." Vorth looked at the displays showing human ships in orbit around his capital. Beings he had dismissed as primitive prey were now offering him mercy. "Open a channel," he ordered reluctantly. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but victorious. Behind her, the bridge of her ship showed humans, working alongside beings from dozens of different species. "Supreme Chancellor," she said formally, "your empire is ended. Your fleets are destroyed or have joined us. Your people are free. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." Vorth stared at this human who had destroyed 1,000 years of careful expansion in less than a year. He tried to understand how creatures he had thought were harmless prey had become the galaxy's apex predators. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing," Chun replied. "We want to give you something instead. The same thing we have given every world we have liberated. The chance to choose your own destiny." It was a concept that the hegemony had never understood. They conquered to gain resources and power. The humans conquered to give freedom. "I surrender," Vorth said quietly. The war was over. Across the galaxy, hegemony forces laid down their weapons or joined the rebellion. Enslaved worlds declared their independence. Species that had been separated for centuries were reunited. 1 year later, Ambassador Sarah Chun stood before the Galactic Assembly on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from 300 species filled the Great Hall, all of them free beings choosing their own governments. "The Terran Federation extends its hand in friendship to all peaceful species," she announced. "We offer trade, cooperation, and mutual defense against any who would threaten freedom in our galaxy." The response was overwhelming. Species voted to join the Federation or sign treaties of alliance. The galaxy was reorganizing itself around principles that humans had fought and died to establish, but not everyone was celebrating. In the back of the assembly hall, former Supreme Chancellor Vorth sat with other hegemony leaders who had chosen exile over execution. They watched the proceedings with a mixture of awe and fear. "They really did it," whispered Intelligence Director Quill. "They freed the entire galaxy and asked for nothing in return."